la que tú los cafetales vuelven a sentir, en la triste canción de amor de la vieja molienda, que en el letargo de la noche parece decir, cuando en la tarde languidece renacen las sombras, en la que tú los cafetales vuelven a sentir, en la triste canción de amor de la vieja molienda, que en el letargo de la noche parece decir, una pena de amor, una tristeza, lleva el Sambo Manuel en su amargura.
We train in the dogs, and the dogs can smell the honey and the hives into the woods, and then we follow the dogs. Actually, it's very good for the skin. If you cut your skin, you can put honey there, and if the cut is not too deep, it will close faster and better than normally.
Lleva el Sambo Manuel en su amargura, pasa incansable la noche moliendo café, cuando en la tarde languidece renacen las...
Don't bake your skin, bake Banish.
Hello Perfect Beauties, my name is Daisy. I am the founder and CEO of Banish. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about my recent trip to Cuba and how it has impacted and shaped me, and also and shaped my personal vision. And kind of whenever the founder's vision or personality is shaped, it also kind of leaks into the company, into the culture as well. And so I also wanted to talk a little bit about how my experience there is going to shape the future of Banish, and also kind of the overall mission of the company and brand. So when you think of Cuba, a lot of people think of like brightly colored buildings, old vintage cars, Cuban cigars, and Cuban rum. But my experience of Cuba was so much more than that. I went with 7 other entrepreneurs all over the world. They came from places like India, Switzerland, Germany, Canada, New York, like literally all over the world. And we all owned 7-figure businesses, and we were all under 30, which was such a great experience because it's very, very hard to meet people who have started companies at such a young age and have been very successful with them. So it was just an amazing experience because I went with a group of people I'd never met before, but also we really interacted with the local community, and we were able to meet and talk with a lot of Cubans there, which I think just enriched the experience so much more and really kind of shaped my outlook on the world. When I travel, I have traveled extensively, and I have found places kind of seem the same after a while. Like they all have a flagship shopping center, and they all have restaurants and with menus that are translated to English, and they all have Starbucks and McDonald's and a Louis Vuitton. Like they all have all these mainstream shops. And when I travel, I really want to experience culture. Like I'm not super into the history necessarily of the place, but I'm just very much into the culture and how people are and their day-to-day lives. Like I love that daily routine kind of thing. And because we were able to interact with locals, I just felt like I was really able to get a taste and a sense of what Cuba was like. First and foremost, just a few mentions about kind of what surprised me in Cuba. And again, I am not like a historian or a politician, and we're not going to talk about politics here, but this is just from my personal experience and what I've observed. If you want more accurate information, you can definitely check out the Homeland Department's travel website, or any more official documents on the internet. But the first thing that I noticed was internet. They don't have internet there. So if you want to get internet, you have to go to a hotel in the city, or you have to go to a park where you get an internet card. And you know, the internet isn't like super high-speed internet, just kind of like a mobile browsing kind of speed. And I really think that changes the culture. You know, they don't have Facebook, they don't have Snapchat, they're not Instagramming, and people aren't obsessed with like taking pictures all the time and posting them on social media. And I feel like even though people say like I would die without internet, I think it was a really relaxing and just mindful and present experience in Cuba, because you know, when you go to a cafe or when you go walk on the street, and this is not in the touristy parts, I mean like more in like the local towns and stuff, you don't see people on their phones going blah 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 kind of thing. I thought that was really, really cool. Also, I felt like because there's no internet, it's really hard for us to like compare socially. I feel like, you know, with the internet age, we're always trying to promote and share the best aspects of our life, and we're also trying to promote a lot of our material lives. So, you know, on Instagram, people are posting like what they bought and their designer stuff and their outfits and where they're traveling to. But again, because in Cuba, you can't really leave the country and you don't really have internet, people aren't really into like comparing so much as maybe somewhere like in LA. There's also very hard to import items. So it's very hard to import items from the outside, which is why most of the cars in Cuba are vintage cars from like the 60s, 70s, whatever, and they're just a mismatch of car parts. It's very hard to import items, so it's very hard to get items sometimes. So sometimes people will run out of toilet paper, or like there's only one kind of bread or coffee you can buy. What surprised me a lot is because the government owns most of the companies there, the government will have like one water bottle company, and there's only one water bottle you can buy, which is crazy because you kind of think like, why do you need more than one water bottle? But it was one water bottle of one size, and that was it. And it just made like life so much simpler, because when you bought water, you kind of knew what kind of water you wanted. But the issue is if you don't like that water, then you can't really get water anywhere else, like bottled water. Again, transportation is very hard, so there's very little public transport, and you also need to like wait for the bus. And you just see people walking on the freeway, walking on the highway, just like walking on the side of the highway, which is like super, super strange, because you're not really allowed to walk in those kind of roads here. And people are waiting for the bus, and sometimes you can be waiting for 2 or 3 hours and the bus doesn't come. So there's just really like there's no infrastructure in the country, so transportation is really, really difficult to get around. And then I saw people hitchhiking. I saw a family of 4, you know, like with their thumbs out trying to hitchhike from the airport, which was really crazy. It is a developing nation, and it is a third world nation, and the airport, out of all the places that I've been to, the airport was just the most dilapidated airport I've ever been to. There were puddles like on the floor because the roof was leaking, and they just, you know, there's no infrastructure really to clean it up and money to do that. Everything in Cuba is done in cash, so the average Cuban will make about like 20 to 30 USD a month. And so that's very, very little money, but the government does subsidize, you know, some of your food. They do subsidize, I think, some of your living conditions, and they also provide free healthcare and free education. So because of that, you could basically get all your basic needs taken care of, but then you just have very, very little discretionary income to spend, which people kind of think like, oh, that's crazy, like I can't live off $20 a month. But if you think about it, if everybody can only live off $20 a month, then you're not really in this like mood to like go shopping and to buy things and to consume things and to just to like, you know, have more, because everybody is kind of in the same situation as you. And with such little disposable income, you're not like thinking about what you're gonna spend your money on. A lot of times after college, you're gonna work for the government. Like most of the people end up working for the government. There's very, very little crime. I felt like in Cuba, it's very safe. It's like actually one of the safest places in the world. The murder rate is super, super low. I surprisingly felt super safe in Cuba. I felt like nobody was trying to like take advantage of me. Nobody was trying to huckle me. Nobody was trying to like get something from me. And it's interesting, even going to Paris or Italy, I felt less safe in those cities than I did in Cuba, because I felt like in those cities, people were trying to always sell something to me, or that they were gonna steal my bag if I left it unattended, or my phone or anything there. But I felt like in Cuba, nobody really cared if you look different. Obviously, I'm a tourist. You know, there's not many Asians there, and being a tourist, I probably have a lot of cash on hand. And again, they don't use credit cards there. So I was just surprised nobody really wanted to like watch me and like figure out when I was gonna leave my money, just misplace it and take it. Like I didn't feel that like weird sense of like people wanting things from me that I do when I travel to other countries. So yeah, very little stealing, very little pickpocketing. Like if you go to Barcelona, there's that market, I forgot where it was, but it's like one of the nations or one of the world's like best like pickpocketing streets. There's really none of that, I didn't feel like. It was hard to get items, so again, sometimes it's hard to get toilet paper. Sometimes when you go to a gas station, sometimes there's no gas. I remember on our first night eating out in this very, very like contemporary, privately owned restaurant. So we could have been in Miami, you know, like it was a very nice place. But it had like 4 or 5 items on the menu, and then I asked for pasta because that was one of the options, and she's like, no, we don't have pasta. And I'm like, well, it's on the menu. And she's like, we just don't have it. And so a lot of times they don't have things, and it's not really in their control because the government owns most of the companies. So if they just don't produce it, you can't really go somewhere else to get it. And also what I thought was really interesting and what really kind of spoke to me was just how little opportunity there is in Cuba. You have to work for the government, or most people work for the government. They are opening up private industry, so you know, some private restaurant owners or like private business people are opening up and they're becoming very successful, but it's still very, very difficult to freelance. So basically, if you want to do some of your own work or be a contractor or work for a different company, maybe work for a foreign company or do any kind of freelancing work, you need to get a license from the Cuban government. And so far, they have stopped for 6 months of accepting or giving out these licenses. So basically, if you don't have one of these licenses and you want to make more money, there really isn't more opportunity to make more money. You're just kind of stuck with your job. I feel like in the US, it's all about like career growth, getting promoted, getting a better job, making more money, all that kind of stuff. There's this like, you know, carrot always dangling in front of you, and you know, people and marketing always promoting this lifestyle that you need to have. But I felt like in Cuba, like nobody was really like thinking of that. Like everyone was very content and happy, and I would say the mindset of Cubans was just a very, very simple mind. I felt like they were very relaxed and present and not like in a rush to do so many things, and not always trying to do like more and get everything and squeeze everything out of you. But basically in Cuba, when I left, I was just so amazed by the people and the talent there, and just how genuine and how smart the people were. Their English was really good, and just the lack of economic opportunity, right? Because it is a communist country and the government controls everything. When I left Cuba, I just fell in love with the people, and I had, you know, maybe a couple $100, which I just gave to our tour guide and to some of the servers and drivers out there, because I felt like they don't have opportunities to make money, and really tourism and doing a good job as a tour guide is like their way of making money. And I also, you know, left some toiletries and some clothing items, because even if they wanted to buy them and they had the money to buy like toiletries, they can't really, like there's no big import and there's no like Sephora there, right? So if you want like Head and Shoulders shampoo, that's a huge item that they would love to have but that they can't get access to. Again, our government owns the production of almost everything. So you know, if they want an Apple computer, it's really hard to get that. So I left some clothes and toiletries because I knew that I could just go to the US and buy them here, but the Cubans really have a hard time. And I really want to plan to start sending, you know, boxes of clothes. You know, sometimes I will donate my clothes or give them away, but I feel like people in Cuba, they really need these items, and I don't know, I just feel bad when I leave it like at a Goodwill. It just like sits there. And also just like donating, maybe like we can get some beauty bloggers to donate some of the PR packages they get, because I know so many beauty bloggers get so many items, personal care items, etc. And maybe we can have them donate and have these items be brought to Cuba, so that way, you know, people can have like face wash and shampoo and some cosmetics and toiletries and all that. I fell in love so much with the country because, again, I didn't fall in love with the food there, I didn't fall in love with the architecture, I didn't fall in love with, you know, the amazing internet there or whatever. I really fell in love with the people there in Cuba, and it made me realize and kind of strengthen my inner calling that has always been like my calling since I was a little girl, is I really want to empower people. That's all I wanted to do. I want to make people feel and make them have opportunities. So for Banish right now, we're empowering people by making them feel confident. We're telling them, and you can see by all the marketing that we do, all the content that we write, we're never telling our customers and our fan base to be perfect and to be flawless, because that's just not achievable. We're giving people information to be healthier, to live, to be more positive, to be more motivated, to be more confident, but we're never telling them to like fix themselves, or like they need, you know, to be perfect and flawless and poreless and acne scarless, because you know, you have acne scars, it's gonna take a while for them to heal. But I think overall in my life and my life mission and goal is I want to empower people on a macro level, and I want to empower people beyond the way they look. So my mission and my like whole legacy in this world is to empower women in developing nations. And the reason why I want to empower women is because women in the rest of the world, we are treated as second-class citizens, right? We are treated as property, as not as human beings with not equal rights in comparison to their male counterparts. And a lot of women are not allowed to go to school. They're just expected to, you know, take care of the kids, make the food, but they can't get themselves out of that situation. And I think it's heartbreaking to go to a little girl and go to her and be like, you're gonna get married when you're 12 years old, and that's gonna be the rest of your life. Like, you have no ability to have dreams and aspirations of your own, because you will never even have the opportunity to be educated and to go out and to do those things that I feel like me and other women here, we take for granted, right? You know, when you're a little girl in the United States, if you want to be an astronaut, you can be an astronaut. If you want to be, you know, a fashion designer, you can be a fashion designer. If you want to be, you know, a stay-at-home mom, you can be a stay-at-home mom. Like, there's so many opportunities. But a lot of women in other countries, because they don't have opportunities, they have to live in a life of poverty. And if they are in an abusive situation, if they have, you know, abusive husband, or their family members are abusing them, they cannot leave. You know, they cannot leave. And I remember watching this episode on Oprah where these women, I forget which country it was, but it was a country in Africa where they get pregnant when they're so young, their bladder cannot hold urine. So they're just, when they pee, they just uncontrollably pee. And because they have children at 12 years old, you know, and that's not by their own choice or volition, they just start peeing randomly everywhere, and then their families shun them because they don't want like someone with all this urine around. And then these women have to resort to things like prostitution, really, and succumbing to so much abuse in order to survive and stay alive. And I just felt like this is not how the world is going to change. We're not going to change the world by subjecting people to abuse and making people, like pushing people down because we're afraid of what's gonna happen if they rise up. You know, like that is not how the world is gonna be a better place. Like, to me and my lofty, idealistic mind, the world is gonna be a better place once people are confident with themselves, once people have education and have the ability to access what it is that they want to access and are confident. We always want to encourage people to help other people, because I feel like once you're confident in yourself, then you can empower other people to do better things, right? But if you're not confident in yourself, you're always going to try to push other people down and make things worse. And I feel like, you know, for example, what happened in the school shooting in Florida recently, I mean, that's just a prime example of this guy was really, really sick in the mind and was not confident with himself, didn't like who he was, decided to take it out and ruin other people's lives. I really want to spread confidence, and I really want to encourage opportunity and spread confidence to those who will never get an opportunity to live a life, and a life that they've always wanted to. So my dream is to, once, you know, I'm 40 or 50 years old, my dream is to give people economic opportunity all over the world. So maybe those in Cuba, you know, the people who are really smart, you know, don't really have opportunity to work outside the government. I'm not sure how I would be able to do that because there's probably a lot of restrictions in that, but, you know, going to other countries, donating money to organizations that I believe in, having a board position in those organizations, and perhaps even starting, a foundation of my own. I think that would be so amazing to go out and build schools, so that way we can teach women how to read, we can teach women how to start their own businesses, we can teach them and give them financing to start their own businesses in these communities, so that way they alleviate themselves and their family out of poverty, and then by turn, entrepreneurship is so wonderful because you're able to give jobs to other women in these communities and thereby allowing them to get themselves out of whatever situation they're in and be financially independent. I really think confidence, education, and financial independence is going to be what kind of drives the world moving forward. And I'm just so motivated to do this in my life. Like, that's the one goal that I want to have, is to really change people's lives and get them out of these poverty-stricken conditions. To me, it's never about money. It's never about me having an island or a private jet or whatever. Me, it's always about leaving a legacy and changing the world, because I'm only here for a very short time. I feel like all my experiences in my life have accumulated to where I am now, and I just want to take that and bring it on to that next level. And I'm just so grateful I've had the opportunity to travel and experience other cultures and other people to really understand what life is like behind my bubble. And I would highly recommend, for those watching, if you have the opportunity to travel, but look beyond just traveling to a Paris or a London, like look into really traveling into a developing third world country to see how the other side of the world lives. This year, I would really love for Banish internally to volunteer for the team members of Banish to really understand how grateful and appreciative we are for the world around us, and to really help people, to dedicate a portion of our time and our work into helping others, because I feel like giving back is so important, and it's stuff that if you don't think of doing it and if you don't plan on doing it, it's just not going to happen. I would also like some team members in Banish to exchange some of their working hours, and instead of working on Banish, going out and volunteering in some kind of organization. I think that would be really good. I feel like those team members could also bring back what they've learned in those organizations and kind of shape the culture and the future of Banish. So that's that. So that is my trip to Cuba. It really changed my life. I highly recommend, if you have a chance to go to Cuba, definitely go, but also, find a local tour guide and kind of see the locals and how they live, because again, their attitude and personality is really what made the trip for me. And maybe I'll do another video about like what you need to know before going to Cuba and all that, but it was just such an amazing experience, and I'm so appreciative that I was able to have that opportunity. So thank you all so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to the Acne channel. My name is Daisy, and I'm the founder and CEO of Banish. Remember, don't pick your skin, pick Banish.